So today's a quick video for a Vinegar Syndrome 4K collection update. I just picked up a couple through kind of interesting ways that I'm excited to tell you about. Already started digging into them as well. That is the Amityville Horror and Primal Rage. Let's boogie. How's it going, everyone? And welcome again to Cobwebs, where we're dusting off the classics. We talk about Blu-rays, we do reviews and rankings with a focus on the past. My name's Daniel, and let's kick things off with the Amityville Horror. Now, kind of interesting how I got this movie. So I thought very hard about ordering this in the most recent Vinegar Syndrome halfway to Black Friday sale. I saw those numbers kept dwindling down, not just for the slipcovered edition, but for the regular edition as well. And I just wasn't sure because I already put in a big order, already spent a good bit of money. And I was gun shy and I missed out on it. The sale ended, the slipcover edition sold out. I'm not sure if the non-slipcovered edition ended up selling out or not, but I saw it was getting very, very close. And I was just like, man, I lost out. Like, that sucks because I really like this movie. Why didn't I buy it in a beautiful edition when I had the chance? I was scoping out eBay recently, seeing if possibly anybody was selling it for a halfway decent price. I came across one selling it for a real good price, but it didn't specify if it came with the slipcover or not. I'm really big into Vinegar Syndrome slipcovers. They just look amazing. I would really rather have them than not. And it was being sold by a Goodwill store. Did you know Goodwills, they have stores on eBay? Sometimes they do. And I messaged them and asked if it came with the slipcover, and they messaged me back, "I've just inspected the item and it has." And I was pumped. I bought it right away. So I got the Vinegar Syndrome slipcovered 4K for the Amityville Horror for a good price after it sold out, which for any Vinegar Syndrome collectors out there, or probably just even Blu-ray collectors in general, you probably know that's not an easy feat. So I'm pretty excited about this. Regarding the movie itself, I actually saw it for the first time a few years ago. And interestingly enough, in the horror community, even though this is a highly influential classic film, this movie's reputation has been in the toilet for a long time. All I ever heard about this movie for so long is it's overrated. It sucks. It's boring. Nothing happens. The sequel is better. Nobody seemed to like this movie. All I ever heard was it's overrated. It's overrated. And I thought, well, if nobody likes it, it cannot possibly be overrated. If anything, it could only be underrated. So I watched it for myself on streaming. I really liked the movie. I decided, yes, I think it is underrated. It's definitely not overrated. But then Vinegar Syndrome put out a 4K beautiful edition, and I haven't heard a bad thing about this movie since. Isn't it funny how that happens with boutique when movies get boutique Blu-ray releases? Some all of a sudden everybody likes them. So let's do a quick dive into this thing. Absolutely amazing slipcover. You've got James Brolin and Margot Kidder as well as the priest right there. The iconic image of the Amityville house. Man, every time in this movie it shows the front of the house, or you might say side of the house, I get so excited. It just looks amazing. There you've got a nice tan spine. There you've got a black spine, really good. Upside down cross like you do see in the movie, a symbol of demonic presence. And then you've got all the flies. And I don't know if you can see it there, but it says very light. Oh, there it is. Get out. Very cool. Slipping that off there, we've got the actual 4K. I've got a weird thing where I'm not a big fan of black cases. I love 4K Blu-rays because I love how they look. Don't love the black cases, so slipcovers make all the difference for me with 4Ks. But I was really hoping this would have reversible cover art with the original poster art, because the original poster art looks really great. Does not. It just has this, which, like, considering, you know, 4K cases are black, they're not clear, you can't see it anyway unless you take it out, and you can't flip that over. So I don't even know what the point of that art is. This thing is loaded up with special features. A few I want to note for you. There's two documentaries on here. One archival from a few years ago, it looks like, by the looks of Brolin and Kidder. It's mostly all James Brolin and Margot Kidder talking about the movie. Really enjoyed that. I really liked hearing their thoughts about working together, which weren't always good thoughts. Their thoughts about whether or not this is truly based on a true story. Now, the Amityville Horror technically is based on a true story in that it's based on real people who really said they experienced something. Did they actually experience anything? Are they lying? Are they mistaken? That's up for debate, but technically it is based on a true story, and hearing their thoughts about that was interesting. It's also got a new documentary that mostly includes minor actors, especially the kids in this movie. That one's okay. I definitely prefer the archival doc, but my favorite special feature is a commentary from a professional parapsychologist, was a PhD in parapsychology. Apparently he was the first guy who was called to the house after the real Lutz family moved out of the house. He was the first sort of supernatural investigator, if you want to call him that, who was called into the house to take a look at it. His perspective is really interesting because he's a true believer in all this kind of stuff. He believes there's some weird stuff going on with that house. He knows not everything in the movie is accurate. He doesn't necessarily believe everything the Lutz family says. He thinks they're mistaken about some things. He doesn't think they're liars, but he truly believes there is a supernatural, spiritual disturbance at that house. And his perspective was fascinating. I'm not necessarily a believer in that kind of thing, but I find it all really interesting. I almost want to be because I'm so into haunted house movies and stuff like that. This is a classic haunted house film, highly influential. Keep in mind, this came out before Poltergeist. Very influential film. I think it's effectively creepy, maybe a little bit too long at 2 hours, but I do really like Brolin and Kidder's performances, so really good film. Next up is Primal Rage, a 1988 Fort Lauderdale college set horror film. This is a much more recent release from Vinegar Syndrome. I'm positive it's not sold out, although technically in June it's partners only month over at Vinegar Syndrome's website, but come July you should be able to pop over there and order this if you haven't yet and you want to. I first watched this movie on Shudder, and how I got this 4K is also kind of interesting. I was podcasting with my good buddy Matt over at the Film Feast podcast. I was a guest on one of those episodes, and I absolutely love that show. Matt is a fantastic guy, good friend of mine, and we talked about this movie because we both watched it recently. Like I said, I watched it on Shudder. He watched it on this 4K Blu-ray, and he liked the movie, but I loved the movie. I was a huge fan of it, and he's just such a nice guy. He was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to send this to you, because he wasn't sure if he'd ever rewatch it. And that's fantastic. Such a nice guy. I can't say enough good things about that fella. Here it is. Here's his copy of Primal Rage, now in my collection. So thank you, Matt. If you haven't checked out the Film Feast podcast, I highly recommend it. Linked down below. So here we've got the beautiful slipcover. You got the baboon there. Now, I always thought that this was a baboon horror film, like an animal attacks horror film. And upon watching the movie, it's really not that. It is a baboon attack that sets off a rage virus. This is a rage virus horror film, much like 28 Days Later. It has more in common with 28 Days Later than Monkey Shines, something like that. Rage virus horror film set at a college in Florida. It is so much fun. It's an Italian film, but it's very effective at seeming like an American film. Unlike, say, a Fulci movie or an Argento movie, you almost wouldn't be able to tell it's an Italian film. It's got American actors in it. Now, this has a special feature on here that I absolutely love. It's got a new documentary, newly produced documentary about this film. And I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the alternate cover art so you can check that out. Yeah, I'm just so amazed that Vinegar Syndrome, they put this little horror film, forgotten horror film by many people, a horror film I had never heard of, out on 4K Blu-ray, gave it this new documentary. I loved the doc. I got to hear from the 4 main actors. They all still look great. Nobody looks like they went downhill after this movie or anything. And so really interesting doc, lots of interesting things to learn. It just sounds like making this movie was tons of fun. They all just talk about it. They all got along. The director was great. The screenwriter was great. They all just enjoyed each other's company. And that's always heartwarming to hear. As far as the 4K transfer, man, it looks amazing. It has so much grain to it, but in a really good way. And occasionally there's some slight imperfections in the film, speck of dust, maybe a slight little scratch. Some people might think that's a flaw. I love seeing the imperfections of film in older movies that are shot on film. It adds so much character to it for me. And I love that. So I'm in love with the way this looks. I don't think I actually talked about the transfer on the Amityville Horror, but it looks amazing. I mean, I can't imagine this movie even looked as good back in 1979 when this got released on 35 millimeter. I mean, it opens up with a shot of rain at night, outside, dark of night, in the rain. That is a recipe for not being able to tell what's going on. And it's so crisp. It's so clear. You can see every individual drop of rain. Really amazing. So this one looks much more perfect. Like it's like one of the best 4K transfers. And this one is just grainy and raw and real. And I really loved how it looked. So those are the 2 latest additions to my Vinegar Syndrome collection and my Vinegar Syndrome 4K collection. Amityville Horror, Primal Rage. Absolutely love these movies. I would say I might enjoy Primal Rage more. It's just so much fun. I love college set movies. I find the characters in this very likable, very enjoyable to spend time with. The Amityville Horror is, like I said, a highly influential classic film. I love haunted house movies. I love the history of haunted house movies, and this is a really important one. So great movies. Thank you so much for tuning into the Cobwebs channel. If you enjoyed this, give a like to the video. It really does help me out. And subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I've got my Vinegar Syndrome sale order coming soon. I'm still waiting on that shipment notification. But as soon as that comes, I will do an unboxing on the channel. So if you want to hear me talk more about Vinegar Syndrome very soon, dust off that subscribe button so we can talk about movies later. With all that said, don't forget to enjoy yourself today and have some fun. I'll see you next time.